And if my guess is right, they dropped a gun they keep for that purpose in the back of their trunk or somewhere and laid it in the street and then claimed that was the gun. But since no shots were fired, and the ballistics expert was from the police, right?
There was ballistics evidence from the police and ballistics expert that came from the defense side also.
And they both said the gun had not been fired, had a full clip.
Had full clip.
So no way could that have been the gun because, as you can see, Josh's hands are up. He didn't have a gun in his hand. I don't understand how a jury could convict your son of anything. And I'm sorry he's still sitting in jail. But I think Mr. Bollinger must have missed some key things that you maybe didn't pick up on yet. And when you get an appeal attorney who's worth their salt, and they go through the transcript, your appeal attorney may pick it up. I just hope you get the right one, because frankly, I have very little faith in 99.9% of the attorneys.
I think that Mr. Bollinger, Attorney Bollinger, was not allowed to let in a lot of the evidence that he had prepared to let in, that was allowed him in the preliminary, and when the actual trial started, it was denied. So
Did he object when it was denied? Did he make an objection?
He made an objection. He made an objection. He stated it in the...
Well, he did that right, because if you don't make the objection, you can't appeal it later. You have to object right then and there on the record. So he did that right. It brings back to me the judge who committed suicide, Judge Figuerello, I think his name was, out in Riverside. He was on the part of the Julie Witherspoon case, if I remember rightly, and just denied, wouldn't let stuff on the record. And I made a phone call to ask him. The trial was over and she had lost. And I went to ask him what happened, made a call, asked him to call me back. And you know what the Judge Figuerello did? A few days later, he jumps off the parking lot ramp to his death. But he didn't die right away. They took him to the hospital, and he laid in agony for hours. I think, I think God's working here is what I'm trying to say, Mrs. Solomon.
Yes.
I think when God sees, I'm not saying your daughter is a saint and she never did anything wrong in her life. I'm not trying to paint that kind of picture, but certainly in this situation, she was a victim of a planned assassination. That's pretty clear to me. There was another case. William Christopher was held in jail for 6 years with no trial at all. They would not give him a trial. They just kept him locked up and said, take a plea bargain, take a plea bargain. You'll be out today, take a plea bargain. And he said, you want me to lie, and I won't lie. So well, you just sit in jail. And they kept getting him to extend his time. He kept saying, well, I'll get an honest attorney somewhere. I'll come along. Never did. Finally, I got involved in the case, did an in-jail interview. And I remember when the judge, who at first had not wanted to let my camera in the courtroom, and now they put on a new prosecutor, and this prosecutor's name was Max. Max calls me up and said, Mr. Wagner, he won't take a plea bargain unless you come to court and tape it. And I said, well, the judge won't let me. I've already gone that route. He said, no, the judge said you can bring your camera in court. Just, you can tape it, because it's the only way he'll do this deal. I said, well, that's a real change. When I got in there and started taping, I didn't realize they'd pulled a fast one. I was too busy concentrating. And what the judge had said, he said, you can call, I'm going to let you out of jail today. And the reason was, he had served as much time as they could give him if he'd been convicted. They couldn't keep him in jail any longer. So what they were going to do is declare him mentally insane and send him to a mental hospital for the rest of his life if he didn't take this deal. And he looked at me and he said, should I take the deal, Mr. Wagner? And I just looked up and said, you've sat in jail for 6 years. I can't make this decision for you. But I had a gal who was a CASA, a court-appointed special advocate. Her name was, forgive me, Adrian Ashley. And she was also taping this and working in a documentary for HBO. And she went and sat next to him and said, take the deal. Take the deal. Even though you've refused to take the deal, take it today because Mr. Wagner's here. And what I noticed is when the judge read and said, okay, you can send any evidence you want, but you can't subpoena the baby doctor. or any of his records. And that was the key. He was the only one that could testify his wife had no bruises, never had any bruises. He was a court-appointed, mandated reporter. He would have had to call the cops. And the whole thing was his wife was a little bit loony. She was from the Philippines, and she was a drama queen. She had accused him of beating her, and she had bruises up and down her body. Well, she had no bruises because he sent me photos. He took photos of her because he was so pregnant. You know, he's proud of his wife being pregnant. He had pregnant pictures of her front, back, side, completely nude. Yeah. Every week he took nude because he was so happy. He was having a boy, his first boy. And he was also an Army veteran, and he was like 40, and he's having his first son. There was not a bruise on her. And that's what the doctor would have had to testify. And I didn't notice that till I got back from San Jose, California, and I'm watching my own videotape, getting ready to do a TV show about it. And the judge said, I will decide this case in 90 days. And I remember when the judge said that, there was lots of lights in the room, you know, it's a courtroom. But I seemed to see like a dark shadow around the judge. Honest, Mr. Bishop's chuckling. He thinks, you know, I'm seeing things. But I'm telling you the truth. When the judge said that with such arrogance, I will decide this in 90 days. Even though there were lights, it seemed to be like a darkness around the judge. The next week, the judge came down with a fast-acting cancer. And within 2 months, he was dead. He never got to decide nothing.
Anything.
He should have asked God what he should decide. And if I don't know what they ever did decide. I think they appointed another judge and probably found him guilty, but they told him, you're not going to do any more jail time. We're going to let you out today. And we're going to just, if we find you guilty, if we find you guilty, you've served all the time you're going to serve. And you don't even have to come back for the trial. And they let him out. I don't know what happened to Mr. Christopher. He's probably living in the boonies somewhere today. But that judge died. And that really, you know, said to me, there is a God. He is watching.
Yes, I do believe that.
I don't know if God's black, white, or has no skin color. Maybe his color is just love. Maybe God's color is just love. And he saw the arrogance and the hate that this judge and this legal system had done to this innocent man. And they said, we're going to fix this. And God fixed it. That judge wasn't around 90 days later. He should have asked God. Because none of us are guaranteed. I mean, I could walk out of the studio, a cop shoot me and say, oh, I shot the wrong guy. Was that Mr. Wagner? Exactly. Oh, well. None of us are guaranteed one more day in this world, and God's in control. So I am really sorry this happened to you. You had some other things you wanted to tell us, I think, about this circumstance of this trial. You had an operation or something you needed to do, and the day the verdict comes in, you're not there.
I wasn't there. I missed the verdict. Oh my God! And I had to hear it over the telephone. So that was totally devastating too, because I had been there for support to my children. I had been there because I needed to have the knowledge for myself to see and to hear all the testimony myself. And then the very day that it actually took place, I wasn't there. So I was at the doctor's office. I missed the whole thing.
Don't beat yourself up.
Missed the whole thing.
Don't beat yourself up, Mrs. Solomon. God has still got a hand in this. And like I told you I prayed for you, and I did pray for you, and I'll continue praying for you. And I ask you people, I ask you out there, if there are any believers, whether you believe in Allah or you believe in God of the Old Testament or you believe in Jesus Christ, I ask you to pray in truth and righteousness that justice be done, that this young woman who's now got a permanent muscle damage, that she get compensated and that she is protected, and these cops don't hire some Mexican gang to try to snuff her or get rid of her brother in jail before his retrial or appeal can be heard, because I hope you do get a retrial. I'm sure if you get a good appellate. Oh, I think you should tell people that you're not terribly wealthy, and that's why you didn't put up bail. What was your daughter's bail?
My daughter and son, the original charges was attempted murder because they heard a shot. They assumed that shot came from the weapon they found, so they automatically gave attempted murder. And I want to say it was in the area of $587,000. Mark Zimmerman would have loved to, he walked away with $587,000. And then eventually they came down to $160,000. $69,000. So it was something that was out of our
Still out of reach.
We were not able to afford that at all. We got the $169,000 bail after a year's time. So we went through a whole year, approximately 11 months or so to a year of the first proceedings. The charges were dropped and refiled the very same day, and then we went the next 4 months into the next where the amount of bail was dropped to $169,000, and then down to $69,000. But trial was about to start, and we were in need of an attorney at that point.
So you had to spend the money on the attorney?
We had to spend the money on the attorney.
So there's one kind of justice for people who can afford bail. There's a different kind of justice for those that can't afford bail. I don't think trials are meant to go on this long. I think the solution is to get back to common law, grand juries. This sounds like this was done with not a grand jury indictment.
No, this was just
An information based on lies, based on a gun that mysteriously appears with no shots fired, but that's what they used to charge her with attempted murder.
attempted murder. The charges were dropped after that for attempted murder, and they went to assault with a semi-automatic weapon. So when they realized the gun had not been fired, the charges were dropped to assault with a semi-automatic weapon. Then the bail was reduced to $169,000, or around about that area somewhere. And then later on, when we went to the second prelim, it was dropped to $69,000 for one and $89,000 for the other.
You couldn't afford either one of them.
We couldn't afford either one. We had no choice. We had a public defender that had been assigned to Neushia, who was insisting that we plead guilty, and here we are now after paying and being able to provide Neushia with an attorney. We have Neushia out, and we're still fighting for Joshua.
And we still have to pay for an appeal.
Say it again, a little louder.
We still have to pay for an appeal for Joshua.
Yeah.
Wow. So the tragedy is not over. But I look at that and I say, those cops didn't just happen to position themselves right there. They were waiting to do an assassin's job. And that whole thing to me just looks, smells. That just smells. Those are dangerous policemen with a gun. And you're in the city here about a year ago, I believe, if you can believe what's said in the newspaper and the media, two uniformed cops shot to death another uniformed cop in their black and whites, from their black and whites, in this city. And the mayor said, we're going to have a private news conference. Mr. Wagner's not invited. Only approved media, and then it's very short and no questions. Everything's going into a closet. We don't have transparency anymore. To me, that should have all been within 2 months. It should have all been open and public, because I would like to go investigate that. And that happened right here in Santa Maria, the same town where 7 years ago on June 13th of '05, Michael Jackson, after being ruthlessly, maliciously, with malice aforethought, prosecuted in open court for 5 months, was found not guilty of not just the 10 felonies, but 14 charges. And it was mostly an all-white jury. And they said, this is all crap. I remember the Italian film crew left, I think, 1 month, I think they left in March, early March. And I said, why are you guys packing up? They said, oh, this is all crap. I said, well, thank you. I'm glad there's somebody who agrees with me, because I'd watched enough of the trial already. I said, these people are liars and grifters, and if the jury can't see this, then God help us all.
I want to say thank you for having us and letting our story be expressed.
Well, you're certainly welcome.
Myself too. There's a God. I do agree. And I thank God for allowing me to meet you and come on your show and show the world what has taken place with my children and myself. I do. I thank
and our
you.
family.
Well, you're certainly welcome, and I hope you enjoy your flowers. It's a small token of apology for the people that let the system get this corrupt. I'm William Wagner, Franz Second Thought, and I hope you've bared with me. See you later.